So, as you know, I'm doing a project on police brutality, and I wanted to know your experience in police brutality. So, I'm going to ask you some questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. First one. What is your most recent experience with police brutality?
The most recent experience with police brutality was when I was going to finish my dissertation for my PhD at UC Santa Barbara. And over that weekend, my ex husband, my dear friend, and I packed up a big U-Haul truck and we drove up to Santa Barbara because I was going to move into the student housing. So as we proceeded to leave and exit the vehicle, not even open the trunk yet to begin taking out my furniture, we were surrounded immediately by four police, and they drew their handguns and pointed their guns at our heads, and we were held at gunpoint for what seemed like an eternity, but it was really about 45 minutes. We were held at gunpoint for 45 minutes because these rookie policemen thought that we matched the description of three suspects that had robbed a Burger King in the same town earlier that day. It just so happened that in Isla Vista, where UC Santa Barbara is at, two black men and a Latina had supposedly robbed this Burger King. And so we matched the description, and so they held us at gunpoint. And so we tried to keep the peace and tried to explain to them that I was a fellow, and they didn't believe me. And at one point, one of the policemen held a gun to my temple because I was screaming at my husband to stop yelling because he was going to get himself killed. So it was a very traumatic experience. People were starting to gather around us and pointing at us and laughing, and like it just seemed like we were being ridiculed and dehumanized in front of a bunch of students. And I don't know exactly how we ever survived that. So by some miracle, somebody told them to stand down, and right away the sheriff, their boss came, and he like blurted out this half apology saying that they had checked on my ID and they knew who I was and that these were my companions, and he said that those were new trainees, and he apologized and they let us go. So in my research, I found out that the police department there linked to the university had been physically abusing other students, and that there was all these complaints and even a suggestion that one of the students that had come down from UC Berkeley for a protest had been, billy clubbed and murdered by one of these policemen. So as I learned all this stuff, I talked to the chancellor, I sought legal help, and in the end, the police published a public apology to me and my companions. And then they also, in that letter, stated that they were going to implement new diversity training for the police and counseling for the police. And also they offered me free counseling and trauma assistance. And I was able to have my entire dissertation year repeated one more time. But the bad situation that had happened was too much for me, and I just couldn't do it. So it was very hard for me. They decided that as black men, this happened to them all the time, and there was nothing they could do about it. But I felt that there was something we could do about it, that we didn't have to take it, and so I pursued it. They decided not to make any statements and not pursue it, and that created like a really big rift between us, and I don't think we ever survived that.
Do you think police brutality has gotten worse or better over the years since Rodney King?
I think police brutality has stayed the same. I think the institutional situation that allows for police brutality to happen has not improved very much. I think that nowadays we end up just having more opportunities to videotape it with the new cellular phone systems, and therefore we're able to see it more, but I don't think it's gotten any better.
Do you think it'll change under the new administration?
It's changing for the worst. I think it's bringing out even more people who are prejudiced, even more people who think they can get away with violating the civil rights of other people because of their skin color primarily and because of their class. I think it's going to get worse.
To what extent is excessive force justified?
I don't believe that excessive force is justified at all. I believe that with the correct training and with the right support and with the right ideology, that human beings should be able to treat others in a compassionate way, even when other people are, for example, mentally ill and acting out because they're on drugs or running for their life because they've committed a crime. I believe that there are tactics that can be employed if the personnel is trained adequately so that you can create a situation where you are able to apprehend a suspect without violating their civil rights and without killing them.
Do you think racial profiling, especially towards African Americans, is a factor of police brutality? And if so, explain.
I do. I believe that racial profiling is a major factor in police brutality towards African Americans, especially African American males. But African American females also suffer it and suffer it in a worse way because the community doesn't always talk about it. They don't talk about the ways that women are raped and murdered. They just disappear. Like, I believe 5,500 black women have disappeared already this year, and nobody's talking about that. So, yeah, I think it is a big factor, and I think it's woven into our country's belief system and justice system. So I believe that it's the legacy of slavery, it's the legacy of the indoctrination that has occurred in order for people who are empowered to claim that other people are expendable. So instead of having blatant, straight out slave plantations now, we have the prison industrial system, which is the same as a slave plantation. The people that are felons that are put in there for criminal deeds don't have any rights, and they're forced to work, and they're forced to work for corporations, and they make money for others, and they don't have the right to earn any money for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And last question: if you have a solution, what is your solution to this active problem in America?
Again, many of the issues that rise up in terms of when you start doing research about police abuse, many of the issues that cause people of color to live in ghettos and in poor neighborhoods and even engage in crime is because of this cycle of criminal activity that has occurred for generation after generation in those neighborhoods. And so one way to deal with it is to actually deal with the social problems that cause people to fall into those cycles. That's on the one hand, the poor communities and the criminal Latin communities. But on the other hand, in terms of police abuse, I really truly believe that one way to solve that is to provide adequate training, diversity education, and to provide multicultural education to all of these officers that are going to then have so much power. When you have a weapon that can kill someone else, like a gun, that's a lot of power that you give to that person. And so if that person comes in with white supremacy ideology or believing that they're superior to someone else or having very masculinizing, like powerful ego tripping, and you don't provide adequate emotional and psychological testing of these people that you're about to arm with guns, then you're falling into the same trap that has happened generation after generation. You're giving the wrong person a gun, and it's only a recipe for disaster.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.